Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a Sulfur Cave space. As you can see here, we are currently transforming this drained aquifer into a Sulfur Cave space. And I utilize all the things that I can. You can see the cinnabar, the mangrove leaves go very well with it, and of course the sulfur. The geysers down here, we have some lava. We're going to decorate this place to the fullest. And thus, this is part 1 of the MEGABASE. You can see here, nice prismatic pool, so let's get right into it. So, going down into this drained aquifer, I chose this because I simply didn't have any other areas. So I used fill biome to add in the sulfur water. However, this means that it will be slightly more difficult for me because I will have to go in and add the sulfur myself. Anyways, what you want to do here is you can see how we have these jagged formations. This was an accident, but this is amazing. You are going to build some of those later on. But for now, we need to prepare the area. So let's turn on some night vision and remove all the ores and then all the magma and replace the entire bottom layer with moss. So you can see here, all the moss in here gives us that primordial ancient civilization vibe, which is exactly what we want. So let's lean into that. Additionally, in order to get that true vibe in here and utilize the sulfur, let's make it so the walls are a few blocks of sulfur as we go up. As we do this, you might also want to gradient it, such as with birch planks or endstone. There's a lot of options, even potent sulfur. However, the latter is a little bit too expensive, so I do not use it. Regardless, we're going to go up the walls, and on top of any of these mounds, we're going to do moss instead. But still, here's what we have. A bunch of sulfur and some interesting formations. Across the walls, you can see how they ride up. They're not the best yet. This is just a crude approximation. Additionally, as we go in here, we can start building our own mounds if we didn't have any, because draining an aquifer is admittedly way too much work for something like this. So, as you do this, have these walls that go outward, as in start with one block and then bow outward, so that way you could not climb it if you were a spider. So you can see here, we have that, and the makings of a waterfall marked with some blue concrete. Eventually, replace it with water and see where the water falls, in order to make sure we know where the waterfall is going to be. And in this case, we're going to put geysers under it. But for now, let's just start doing some of the excavation needed for this. So, we have the trench here, and then the bottommost layer, I assume, is going to be flat. If your place is a little bit uneven, you might want to flatten it and turn it into 1 or 2 layers. That way you have a little bit more diversity than just one flat layer. This almost looks like a golf course and works perfectly fine since we have a nice basin down here. And pretty much, we're building a lake. We let the water fall down, and then we're going to make an oblong shape that goes along the borders of this lowest layer. Of course, change the shape as needed in order to suit your varying cave shape. So we have this, the water is coming down. Now we're going to build the geyser, and this is a little interesting process. But fortunately, we can use signs to make sure nothing weird happens. So here's how you do it. Go under your waterfall and dig down about 4 blocks. Then place yourself a sign, that way the water can't come in, and then use some potent sulfur. So it goes lava, then potent sulfur, and then water. So you can see like this. Then you just adjust the height of that in order to make sure you have your desired waterfall. So coating it all in sulfur, I'm going to change it to smooth sandstone in a moment. We have double waterfalls here. And that is really good for that extra effect there, since we're using not only a chaos cubed feature, but additionally, we're just making it look good. Across waterfalls like this, you can coat the sides of it in the back with some more smooth sandstone to make it look like worn away sulfur, because sandstone just works really well with this palette. So we have that going on, we have this waterfall, and it looks pretty good. However, let's turn it into a certified hot spring. Add a border to it. I recommend potent sulfur and not a continuous border, but this gives us a general idea. So right here, potent sulfur in little bits, and then we have some red smooth sandstone surrounded in some red terracotta and eventually lime terracotta to blend it with the moss. And you can see this works really well for getting that nice prismatic look to it. Then dig down into it. The first layer should just be plain sulfur with a bunch of glow lichen to make it bioluminescent. Sea pickles could also be added. Then dig a little bit deeper and add prismarine and finally blue concrete. When you turn off the night vision and then brighten the video for clarity, you can see how this looks amazing. This is the main centerpiece of your build, and you want to be building around it. Because the main thing about building in a cave is sometimes you run out of room, so a lot of our structures are interior only, and thus we need something else to tie it together. Thus, the idea of this base is instead of building one big structure, we have basically a civilization surrounding our hot spring. To really wrap this together, we're going to make it a true ancient civilization and add ourselves a path around here, but not any normal path. Instead, we're going to be making it somewhat ruined. Make it out of cinnabar and granite, and do not make it complete. When you go upstairs, just use solid granite and texture it later. But anyways, we go all across here, and once you have it all tied together, then you have yourself a path. Connect all the different sections like the buildings inside the mounds or any freestanding structures to it. Then we're going to use some further cinnabar bricks in order to tie it together. We're going to damage them later using some stairs and polished versions of it in order to make it look like it's old and malformed. So we have that going on, and then anytime you need a foundation for something, just do some sulfur. Sulfur bricks is also a good block for it. And now we're going to add all these little things across the structure. So you can see here, we have ourselves some pillars just as some testing, and we need some lighting as well. Because of course, it's a little dark in here. We have some sulfur, cinnabar, and bamboo. You could change around how you do it, or maybe not even use a fire block. But still, this little lamp design can bring you a lot of lighting, and thus I incorporated it all around in order to really tie it together. When you have your place all well lit, but still using some dramatic lighting on the walls, that's what makes it good. I am actually against full bright because of this. It removes the lighting mechanic of Minecraft. Now, here's the fun part. I'm going to ask you to turn off all the music, all the little mini player stuff, your podcast, everything, including this video for a moment if you've gotten this far. And I want you to fish in the hot spring. Make sure there's no dangers, and do this until you catch 5 things. No enchantments. This will give you time to think about your build. There might be something about your cave or your style of building that I cannot see or cannot do. So let's think about that. In the meantime, I'm going to be texturing this little area right here. We have some lime terracotta around the edges of the moss, and then some green concrete around the overhangs of moss. This gives it a little bit more texture. Now, let's look at these walls for a moment, how we do cinnabar. You can see it's a bunch of stairs and walls haphazardly joined together in order to make a border from the hot spring. Use this in order to texture your walls. Additionally, you can see how more granite and cinnabar survived closer to the wall, suggesting that the moss is taking over. Additionally, you can incorporate some of the polished granite variation in order to make it more interesting. Now, let's return back to the actual build, and what we're going to do is we're going to start building the house. So, inside one of your mounds, you want to start by making simple rooms, and make sure that you have a unique idea for each one. That way, the rooms are not identical. You want to make them unique. So, in this case, the first room I'm going to make into a cave of sorts, while the second one will have this big wall for storage and it will have these nice arches. For the waterfall, I even incorporate the geyser into the build by decorating it. Other rooms could have a cave-in, or potentially be more industrial, such as using some copper pipes. Regardless, let's take a look. We have a very simple hobbit hole style entrance with a window using some shelves. We have little windows all over the mound in order to make it look like that we built into the mound. And this is a unique style build that helps you utilize your space efficiently. On the inside, this is going to be our cave-in room, where we have the ceiling be made of sulfur and some of its variants. So let's keep that in mind as we build this one. Some good ideas are diorite and cinnabar polished flooring and a checkerboard. Might look a little like steak and shake, but it should work. Additionally, we want to make sure that the room is not completely level, because everyone expects that. Instead, you can see here how I use some spikes on the ceiling, place string under them, otherwise it'll grow, and some moss growing. Additionally, how the tile set changes, I do make the whole room eventually just a red and white. Then, in order to make sure we can access different levels to this, I decided to make this little contraption here, which basically is using a redstone torch to invert a piston. And this piston moves out of the way in order to let me use the geyser. Of course, if you need a little help with building that, comment down below. I can show you exactly how. From here, we just continue building and think about what rooms you need. Nether portals are a fantastic one to over-decorate. While the storage rooms could be a bit more basic, I still strongly recommend adding stuff. Additionally, make multiple entrances in order to make sure that your build is actually useful. While technically the best base would be one that is completely made of soul soil for soul speed transport, let's still make ours a bit efficient, even if it uses a lot of empty areas. We have this nice arch on the ceiling, using some stairs and slabs, and its height is capped by using some schematics for a bedroom up here. We're just going to use jungle planks in case we don't have anything else. Mangrove is too similar to cinnabar. So, we have that, our little garden copper gnome. Yeah, you can change the pose, but none of them really work besides sitting. But we have this, and we're going to make this a storage room. Additionally, you can make a little entranceway here, even if you have no plans for it. You might have something later. Like right here, for the waterfall, I turned it into a proper geyser. And this really helps bring the build together by showing that I'm not going to have hidden segments. This is how you make your build yours, hence why I do customized tutorials. We have little entrances here in case you want to use it as an elevator. Additionally, we have the Gearsaw patented storage method, where I use the blocks in order to demonstrate what I'm showing. We have dirt, cobblestone, stone, whatnot. This helps you keep your stuff organized without using item frames, which can easily get laggy and can be a little bit annoying at times since they only store one item. Then we have the storage room, which is the same thing. Amethyst is a placeholder block, and then we have segments that you can use item frames on for things like bones, rotten flesh, string, things that don't have blocks associated with them. Make sure to use lots of mangrove in order to break up the red and yellows. Additionally, we have this little island here that has a crafting table and barrels for things that we need immediately, and glowstone hidden under carpets. But for now, I'm excavating this little area here, and here's the idea. If we just have a normal floor, then the place is going to be normal. Instead, let's get really creative. So in the middle, we have ourselves some carpet with glowstone hidden under it, yellow concrete replacing some of the sulfur. But the idea is we have a whole room under here, and this can be customized. But essentially, we have these little areas down here with the grates in black concrete, like we're absorbing the lava for energy. Lots of intermittent geysers using magma in order to, well, bring it together better. And then we have netherrack, magma, and cinnabar acting as the walls. Pipes heading from the area where I plan to place the nether portal, and then some copper pipes to transport whatever is being pumped, because the lava, it's already down there and it's being transported somehow. Anyways, for the ceiling, lots of sulfur, varying layers, lots of mangrove, and a mural. You can even use gold for it. But additionally, don't forget about that floor. Windows are a great way. You could even do it for the ceiling instead. Now, let's move on to another room. Over here, we have this little nook we can use for our alchemy room. Since I'm splitting this into part 1 and part 2, here's some instructions in case you want to build yours faster. And this applies to part 2 as well, even if it is out. Since we have so much room, assuming you chose a big cave like me, we should not put all of our things in one room. Instead, let's make a bunch of different buildings and tie them together. So, in this case, I'm going to be showing a few ways on how you could connect them without making them all one building. So, for this, we're going to be building an alchemy room with a bee room on top. This will help you continue on with your building and get an idea of what you want to do. So, let's review this for one final time. So you can see here, I just have the basic main room, and we have the alchemy room right here. It has a bunch of cobwebs and boxes, and actually a broken-in ceiling. This is supposed to represent the fact that alchemy is a completely underutilized mechanic because nobody wants to deal with the particle effects over their screen. So, we have that, some damage in here, and candles. Pretty much, we've accepted by this point, yeah, this room's a mess. And you can see how it's actually damaged from above and leads directly onto a later balcony. You could actually fall down here, and that might seem like a hazard, but we can turn that into advantage. Additionally, we have a small area to keep bees in here, decorated just like the rest of our base, but incorporating mud bricks, because why not? So we have that, some honeycomb to act as a little decoration, and you can see this is actually quick access. In order to make sure this is truly quick access and not just a health cost, let's just do a little bit of powder snow. That way, it's safe and you can fall down freely. Additionally, you might also want to start incorporating rooms that you can't actually access. These facade rooms make your base feel bigger than it really is. Additionally, if you're taking a while to build this, perhaps build temporary shelter like this, because of course, the cave spiders of the Sulfur Cave can prove quite deadly, especially with the creepers, dark conditions, whatnot. So let's just be safe rather than sorry. So, damage it a little in order to make it blend in. Make sure that your foundation, if it's visible, actually looks good. We can add some stairs into it to do that. And then we can move on and look around to other areas. Whether you want to incorporate different build styles like that little cottage thing, this little bridge here, or the more modern aesthetic I decided to try incorporating, that is up to you. In fact, I might regress and change them later on. But we have all that, and we have the glow lichen around, which means it's the end of this part, and thus today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. And for part 2, we'll be covering some really cool stuff like the nether portal, the enchanting room, the blacksmith, and potentially some smaller things like how we're going to deal with animals or transport in and out of the cave. So either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.